So just a little disclaimer before the video properly starts. I'm a very, very small YouTube channel. I kind of have to make titles like that to get at least a little bit of attention. This isn't necessarily my favorite game of all time, but, you know, on a good day, it could certainly be my favorite game of all time. But needless to say, I'm going to try and make a very good case for why this is one of my favorite games ever made. And I guess without further ado, let's try and get started here. So, if you've heard of this game, you've probably heard of the horror stories about when it came out. This game launched in an absolutely disgusting state. The game was nowhere near ready, and I'm not, throughout any of this video, I'm not excusing any of the shady shit that CD Projekt Red pulled. They forced these poor developers to shit out a game just because a trailer did well, and I'm not excusing any of that. Obviously, when the game came out, it was an absolute train wreck, but I shouldn't excuse all the hard work that went into this game, and it is a certainly very quality product now. So, diving into it, we'll start with this game's story. Now, I'm not going to go too depth into the story side of things here. I'm obviously going to discuss it, but like I said, I'm not going to go too deep into it. But as far as the plot goes, this game has a very, very, very basic plot. And it's kind of hard to talk about for that reason, because the plot of this game is kind of very common in media. The main character has a virus, or whatever you want to call it, that he's trying to get out before he just dies. And that is the plot. It's you just trying to get rid of this fucking virus. And it's difficult to talk about for that reason, because the plot doesn't sound very interesting in the slightest, but the part where this game's story shines is through the characters and the writing. And what I mean by that, and I'm kind of diving into other areas of the game here as well, this world feels so real, and the writing and the characters really speak to that, because it doesn't feel like you just talk to a character in a video game. It feels like you're there having a conversation with a real person, and no other game that I've ever played has ever made me feel like that. And that's a running theme you'll see throughout this video, but the point is, the actual people and characters and interactions in this game are masterfully done. It feels like two real people having a conversation, and that's what's so perfect about it. But that's sort of the long and short of it for the story. I mean, obviously I could go deep into the sort of specifics of it, but I'd just kind of be explaining the story and like, oh yeah, it's really good. The characters are all amazing. Characters like Panam and Judy and Johnny Silverhand, of course. Keanu Reeves does a fantastic performance in this game. And V, of course, is... well, it's a difficult character to talk about, because the way V acts and sort of is ultimately up to you. And it's another reason why this game's story is kind of difficult to discuss, because if you play this game, or if you've played it, there's a chance you would have had a very, very, very different experience than I did on my first couple of playthroughs. Just because of the way the game is, it's sort of an RPG, that it has these dialogue and choice-driven sections that can seriously impact the game later on. But it's not like Detroit Become Human levels of like 100+ endings. Like, no, I think there's a good like 10 endings in this game. I'll probably put that in an edit. But yeah, the point is, it's difficult to discuss what I like about the story, because I'd be discussing what I liked about the story that I also sort of created for myself, if you get me. But no matter what the endings are, it's absolutely amazing. I will say, I'm going to get into sort of spoiler territory now. Just the ending I got on my first time, I thought it was absolutely perfect. I got the ending where V runs away with Panam at the end of the game, and I think from a character development perspective, it was absolutely sublime the way they handled it. I mean, basically, you spend the whole game running from death. That is the plot. And at the end, when you realise you're going to die no matter what you do, it's this beautiful ending where, sure, you're going to die, but why focus on what you're going to lose when you can focus on what you have now? And that's sort of the gist I got from it. I don't know if you interpret it differently, definitely let me know. But I just thought that was such a poetic ending to the plot the game had told. I wasn't really expecting it, When I was first playing through this game, obviously I thought the plot was dead basic, but I thought that just put the most perfect little bow on it. But like I said, it's difficult to discuss because you might have got a wildly different ending to me, and the implications are very different depending on what ending you get. But you know, the story's incredible. The characters feel like real people, and you know, building on that, moving on to sort of different aspects of the game and sort of the open world and the visual storytelling. In those aspects, this game is second to none. I've never played a game where I've been more immersed than Cyberpunk 2077. Every single bit of gameplay, it feels like you're in Night City. You know, it feels like you are there crafting your own story. It's genuinely like a little lens into the future. And you know, when it comes to the open world and world building, now I'm going to try not to get political here, but I've come to learn that Cyberpunk as a genre is inherently quite political. But I'll just say, driving through the open world and seeing all these massive signs for like, all just advertisements for all this random shit, and it all just seems so beautiful and colourful and amazing. And then the contrast with the actual people walking the streets and the things that are going on and the things you hear about, and you drive out of this beautiful idealistic city for 2 minutes and you'll see no plants, no animals, just a desert with rubbish and trash thrown all around it. And there's a bit in the game, it's near like the bottom left of the map, I think, I could be wrong there, but it's this massive fuck off landfill that just spans for miles and miles and miles. And the first time I discovered these things and sort of looked at what the game was implying, it really spoke to me like, shit, this is just us in 100 years. This is what it's going to be like. Because that's what it is. It literally is just our world now, 100 years into the future. Well, obviously it's 2077. I don't really know how timeline shit works, but you know what I'm trying to say, you know? And it feels so scary realistic in the best way possible, and I think that is what gaming is for, ultimately. And this game nails it. It puts you in this world that you never would have been able to see otherwise without the medium of gaming. And, you know, I've got my Xbox open next to me. Some games is like, oh, Forza Horizon 4, you know, you drive around. Well, I can do that in real life. Cyberpunk 2077 and, like, Halo and shit, they put you in another world and make you believe you are there, you know? And that's what this game does perfectly. It's just the world building and the immersion. There's never a moment, unless I see a funny bug, because they do still happen sometimes, there's never a moment where I'm not immersed in the game. Just a little bit, you know? This game is so immersive. The world feels so lived in. I'm trying not to repeat myself here, but yeah. If you want a game where you feel like you're being transported into another world for a few hours, this is it. You know, even a game like Red Dead Redemption 2, you know, that is a really fun game where I'm playing as a cowboy. But this don't feel like I'm playing as anyone. It feels like I'm there. And that is definitely the best thing I can say about the game. It's unreal how immersive this game can be at times. But moving on from that as well, onto the gameplay. Now, this is difficult to discuss because I'm not a big like RPG guy, but the first thing that spoke to me when I started playing the game, at least, is the gunplay's good. The gunplay is very, very fun in this game. But the second I open my little pause menu, it's really overwhelming, the stuff you have to keep track of in this game, because you've not only got your like attribute upgrades, but you've got your like actual skill tree as well. On top of that, you've got cyberware, guns, armor. I'm not sure if armor's still in the game since the newest update, but it's just so much stuff to keep track of to make sure you're constantly like at the right level for what you're going to be going into. But I mean, there is difficulties as well. If you want to just play on easy and blast through the game with no upgrades, you can do that. But if you sort of want to play the game in quotes properly, it can be quite overwhelming, which sort of leads to my next issue about the game. And in fairness, on my recent playthrough, this has got a lot better and less noticeable. But my biggest problem with the game when I first played it was it gives you so many tools to take down your enemies. But at the end of the day, all the enemies are just the same. The best example I can give is probably the Batman Arkham games. Whenever they give you a new tool, they would give you an enemy that you had to use that tool on, if you get me. Whereas Cyberpunk, when you unlock a cool thing, it's fun to use and it's cool, but ultimately you could get by just shooting all the enemies. And I know that firsthand because that's what I did on my first playthrough. I didn't feel encouraged to look into getting cyberware or upgrades or quick hacking and stuff like that when I could just use my guns and upgrade my strength, and that would do me just fine. But that's why I kind of wish the game put you outside your comfort zone a little more and had more enemy variety to actually encourage you to engage with some of the shooting mechanics. Well, not shooting mechanics, but just the combat in general. And it was a little bit disappointing because it's obviously speaking to how this game launched, you know. The combat was sort of half-baked, just like everything else in the game, and the AI at times can definitely show that. The AI in this game was never stellar. It just felt like I was fighting some dudes in a video game, and it felt like that for like every single encounter pretty much. Oh, more dudes to shoot. It's not like, oh, we've got one of these enemies, I should use this quick hack or something, you know what I mean? It gives you more tools to take out the same enemies, rather than putting you in a situation where you have to use those tools, or you're not really going to make it. But that could be seen as a positive as well. It doesn't force you to do things you don't want to do with the gameplay, but I feel like that's just a fancy way of saying, yeah, there's not a lot of different enemies in this game or encouragements to sort of go outside your comfort zone. But that is genuinely my biggest complaint with the entire game, is just the fact that it doesn't really encourage me to use all the game offers. But that is genuinely my biggest complaint. My second biggest complaint would be a sort of drawn out intro. It's not really a problem, and it could just be me, but the game doesn't really seem to get going until after the heist portion. Like, that is sort of the intro to the game. That's where Johnny Silverhand comes in and everything, but there's a good chunk of gameplay before any of that goes down. And I don't know, I suppose it's replaying the game that's more of an issue. When you're playing the game the first time, it doesn't feel like an intro. It feels like the game's already started. But upon replays, it can be like, yeah, I kind of want to get past this now. But that is very much sort of a nitpick. But they are genuinely my only complaints with this game. Aside from that, the gunplay is fun. The driving physics have gotten a lot better since launch. It's actually a pleasure to drive around Night City in this game. Same way it's a pleasure to drive around Los Santos in GTA 5. It's that same feeling. Just because the world feels so lived in, it feels like you're driving on the streets. It doesn't feel like you're telling someone else to do it through a controller. And this is definitely the best game I've played in terms of just immersion and putting me in the world that it takes place in. It's second to none in that aspect, 100%. But yeah, aside from that, there's so much side content that I couldn't even cover it all in one video. Highlight was the jeez, I forgot his name, River, I think, the detective side mission. That's definitely the best one that I played. 100%. It sort of follows him going after his nephew who's been kidnapped, and you unlock this whole conspiracy, and if you sort of play your cards right with the choices and stuff, you can get a really good ending out of it, and it's really good to see. You get a cool revolver off him too, I remember that. But yeah, that was definitely a standout for me. There's a lot of side activities to do though. You've got the NCPD crimes. And they're the ones I spend a lot of my time doing, because it's on the way to a mission. There'll usually be one, and you literally park your car, kill a few dudes, and grab some loot. It's the simplest form of side mission, but it really does work. So on top of that, you also have the actual story side missions to go through, and they're all some are a bit more in depth than others for sure, but there are definitely some good ones in there. I remember that river side quest. It literally piggybacks off another one. Like, you start on with this like rich couple who's been like, something's going on with them, or it's something to do with the mayor, and that's a side mission itself, but it introduces you to this character, and it unlocks another side mission with this character. I just think that's so exciting to think about. All these, like, you do one side mission, 3 more open up for 3 different characters you've met during that, and I think it was a really genius thing when I first did it. I was like, oh, this side character from this side mission has his own side mission. That's kind of crazy. I don't know if I'm completely waffling about that right now, but it was impressive when I saw it. 100%. But aside from that, you've also got these Cyber Psychos. Now, honestly, I don't have a ton of experience with them. I haven't quite 100% in the game. I think I've done, like, honestly, 1 or 2 Cyber Psycho battles, but they are a lot of fun too. It's basically just a mini boss in the open world, which is always good to have. And you've also got the gigs as well, which are sort of side missions, but not really. It's not like you meet a character and you go do a little story thing with them. It's more, here's a unique objective you need to complete at this area, and there's a lot of them around the world for sure. There's definitely stuff that I'm missing here. You can buy apartments and cars and all that fun stuff. A lot of that was kind of useless back in the day, because they let you buy these apartments and stuff, but they didn't actually give you much stuff to interact with in the city. And that's just one more thing that I didn't like. I'd love to be able to sort of walk into a bar and have a drink, sort of Red Dead Redemption 2 style, but you can't really do that in this game. You walk into a bar like the Afterlife or something and you say, oh yeah, I'll have a drink, and it just opens up this menu where you can buy consumables and stuff. And I just thought it was a bit weird. Like, I think that genuinely that's the only thing about immersion. But I'd like to just be able to go in a bar and have a drink, or fucking go to a restaurant and just eat some food, you know? Because you do it in you do that stuff in missions. You can knock back a shot and eat some noodles in missions. So I don't think it'd be that hard to incorporate into the open world. But that's just, again, it's one of the only things. But just to recap, this game is absolutely immersive. It has a heartbreakingly good story with quite a simple plot that's easy to follow, but it's so much fun to go through, and it's so immersive. The gameplay is so much fun. There's so much to unlock and try out. I've barely even scratched the surface. You have to have about 10 playthroughs to see all this game has to offer. But yeah, I just think, to conclude, I think if you were turned off this game by the fact, you know, by the launch and everything, trust me, I won't blame you. What you know, the whole situation with it was disgusting, but it doesn't excuse that a lot of people have worked very, very hard to get this game where it is today. And, you know, if you call yourself gamer and you have the spare cash lying around, I'd recommend picking it up and giving it a go. That's if your computer can fucking run it, because this game is absolutely stunning. But yeah, I really would recommend giving it up and getting a playthrough. It really is up there with the likes of Red Dead Redemption 2 and God of War, and it's that sort of caliber game. And if it released in its current state when it launched, it would have got 10 out of 10s across the board. I assure you that. But you know, I think that's all I have to gush about this game. I'd recommend picking it up, but until then, it's been Shredder, it's been a pleasure, and I'll catch you all in the next one.